Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Dan. This is part 2 of our SDS Duplex diaphragm pump rebuild. If you haven't seen the previous video, I went through the pump and I tore it down. We diagnosed it. I pointed out the things that were wrong with it. Now I've got my parts cleaned up. That's our housing, our screen, our discharge head, motor adapter. We have a new end cap that's been restuffed and repotted, and we have a new cam or rebuilt cam and cam plate with new bearings. So that's all been taken care of already. Yeah, let's get started on the build. And so make sure you got all your parts. First thing I do is I check my pistons with my cam plate. This is something that I want to make sure that we have our good tolerances, that these slide in and out really easily, because we don't want this binding up. If it binds up, it can go in, and when you tighten it down, it only goes in like so far. So always check your pistons, make sure they go in and out. If you want, you can look at your pistons and see the depth, check the depth of them. So I put my outer piston in and I hold it tight, and I check the gap to make sure that I'm not too far away. We don't want a large gap. We need, this looks right, but if you have a micrometer, you probably want to check it. I would say it's probably about 2/100ths of an inch. It's not a whole lot, but we definitely want to make sure it's snug. So we have that there. And yeah, so for starters, I will clean these pistons off. I will take a paper towel, take a little bit of rubbing alcohol. This is just plain rubbing alcohol you can buy at the store. This is a 70% isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just cleaning the underside of the piston off, because these pistons, when I get them, they can have a bit of oil on them, and sometimes that oil has a little shaving or two in it. So I want to make sure that oil's gone. Shavings, we don't want shavings underneath, trapped underneath our pistons. So I'll clean these off, and then I will set them on my build plate. If you don't have a build plate, we do sell build plates here at Sun Pumps. They look like this. They have these pegs here to place your pistons on. They have the holes for where you can screw your build plate to a table so you can work on your pump. But this is a custom build. Our pumps are designed here. We engineered them here, and so we had to build our tools to work with them. So once we got our pistons, they're cleaned off, we're next going to take our diaphragm, and we're going to make sure there's nothing on the diaphragm. Should be good and clean. And we're going to take it, and we're going to place it with the concave side facing up, convex side facing down. We're going to go over the piston and snug it down. Now those pistons are going to want to jump off those posts. That's okay. As long as we can push them back down and get them held into place. Next, we'll take our outer piston and we will push those on, and those will snap into place as well. Just nice like that. Now we won't be able to get them all the way down, because that's where we have to screw them down. So next, we take our motor adapter, make sure it's clean here, that there's nothing in it. You can take your rubbing alcohol and paper towel. You want to clean off anything that might be binding up, or make sure your thread screws are clear and that your screws can actually screw into them. Sometimes these can have a little galled thread, and you definitely don't want that. Next, we're going to carefully just place this over the top. Let's angle this over the top. Let's see if I can do this here. And I'm just going to line it up and bring it down nice and even over those. There, we got it. Sometimes kind of have to little rotate. Make sure our pistons are still staying put. Next, we're going to take our set screw here. This is our little set screw. I'm going to put a little anti-seize on it so it doesn't bind up if this pump fails and we got to take it apart. And I'm going to put it inside our cam. And I'm just going to get it started. I'm not going to go all the way through. I want to make sure my cam is clear. Let's check our cam with our shaft. Sometimes the rust can eat away, and you may need to take some sandpaper and clear out the inside of a shaft if you're reusing your shaft. In this case, I do need to clean this one out. I actually have a reamer tool here that I'm going to clean it out with. I'm going to lock my set screw in place so I can hold it while I just kind of ream it. There we go. Kind of blow out the shavings. We should now be able to slide that on. There we go. That's what we want. Makes it a little bit easier for us. So now I will line my set screw up with my keyhole right here on the side. We're going to drop that down right on top, and it should slide right onto the two pistons. Once we got those on, we can now take we have our two 7/8 inch screws, and we have two washers here. Now, I do put a little anti-seize on these at times. You don't have to. We're going from, this is regular iron. We are going into a stainless screw. The stainless screw can gall easily, so the anti-seize does help in preventing that. So we'll put a little bit of anti-seize on the screw and drop that in. Next, I have my 532 impact driver, and I'm going to hold this cam plate down so it doesn't jump. Those pistons are going to want to jump off those pegs, but I'm just going to get them going. I try to go evenly on each side as I go down. And then, once I've got it set there, we take a torque wrench. And I've got it set to 55 inch-pounds. And I'm going to hold down again, make sure that my pistons are not jumping off their pit posts. Make sure it's in the right position. And we're going to torque these screws to 55 inch-pounds. And that is inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. There we go. And the next one. And there's our click. I'll just check again, yep. And I'll go back to the first one, check, and it's clicking. Go back to the second one, and it clicks. So we are now at 55 inch-pounds of torque. Next, we will take our motor assembly. We have our motor right here. I will make sure I get plenty of anti-seize here on our motor shaft. Now, I have this already rotated to the flat surface. Our flat surface is where our set screw is going to go against. So I want to make sure this is well coated. I'm going to just paint it up with the anti-seize. Because if we don't have sufficient anti-seize on this shaft, if it leaks, you will not be able to get this thing off. It will rust very tight because we got iron going on iron. All right, once I've got that in, I put my set screw key, my Allen key, my 1/8 inch Allen key, and we're gonna slide it over the top. And once we got it on even, we are now, before I tighten this down, I'm actually going to press down on these. And I want to make sure that cam is fully seated. And I got a little metal gauge here. You don't have to use a metal gauge, but this metal gauge just shows me that my pistons are all the way down. My cam is seated. but you can actually just give it a little tap on each piston until it goes all the way down. And then you're going to hold it, and you want to hold these pistons down while you tighten the set screw. And that way, if you don't and you tighten your set screw, that set screw can actually walk up the shaft, and your cam will not be fully seated. We don't want that. We want to make sure we're fully seated. And then I'm just tightening that set screw just by hand. I'm not putting any determined amount of torque. I'm just digging that set screw into the shaft so that it cannot move. Once we've got that set, I like to line up my diaphragm with their holes, and then we will take our other 1032 set screws, and I'm going to actually grab a bit of silicone here. Forgot my silicone. Now, this is not necessary to put silicone on these, simply because if it's leaking down to these bolts, it's already getting past your diaphragm and probably leaking through where pistons are. But my boss does like me to just take extra precautions, so I'm going to put a little bit of silicone just like that. This is RTV, it's a marine grade silicone, and we're going to put a little bit of silicone on those to kind of help seal up the holes. So if we do get a small little leak, it can't go down through these bolts. I'm going to put it here on the opposite side. There we have it. And just kind of give it a little wiggle, make sure it'll help line our screws up. And then I'm just going to start each one, and then I will impact them in. Once they're impacted in, set my silicone aside here. I'll take my torque wrench and we will torque it to 55 inch-pounds as well. There you go. Now I can take my diaphragm, and you can kind of see it's the diaphragm is kind of flapped up like this. I'm going to push that diaphragm down in. And I want to make sure all the holes are lining up, that our diaphragm is not interfering with our screws. We can clear off any dirt or take some air. You can blow it off. We don't want any dirt here trapped. So that's our motor adapter and diaphragm and pistons all mounted together. That's our first part. Next, we are going to take our relief valve springs and poppets. Now the poppets just kind of pop right into the spring just like that, as you can see. And then we have these two little rubber posts on the diaphragm. And if you just kind of slightly twist in one direction and then the other, they'll just stick right on there and kind of stand upright. And that's all we really want. It's just for those to stick just like that. Next, we will take our discharge head and our suction screen, and we're going to put that screen right there. I line up the weld seam with the two holes where our cable guard is going to go. Next, we will take our check valve, and we have our O-ring here. We're going to put our O-ring inside the check valve, push it on down in, and it should just stay just like that right in there. It's going to stay in there, and then we will carefully place that in there and press down. And next, we will hold our check valve in place while we turn it over. And I'm just grabbing it with my two fingers here to hold it. We want that check valve to stay where it's at. We don't want it falling out. We don't want to pinch our O-ring that we've got inside there. The O-ring is fully seated, and we know that because our check valve is sitting flush with our discharge head. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to carefully guide this on to where we want our poppets to go into their respective holes. And then we'll just slide it in, take a look while I'm going down. And there we have it. So now I have it just resting on those springs. Next, we will take our 1032 by 1 1/2 inch screws, and I'm going to once again put some anti-seize on these. I really don't want my threads to gall. If your threads gall up on these, it can cause a lot of problems. So always make sure you got some good anti-seize. It's always a good idea to check your threads. Put those in. And we have our 532 impact. I'm gonna just slightly, gently pull it down, hold it in place, and then start one. Go to the other side, start that one. Go to the other side, start that one, and then we'll go all the way with the last one. And then work in reverse. There we go, our discharge head is on. And next we take our torque wrench, and again, 55 inch-pounds. That one's already met. That one's already met. That one's a little loose. There we go. Now that one. And there you have it. So we now have our discharge head on. We have our pump end is completely assembled. At this point, I would take this pump, and I have a test tank. Before I house it, I will actually test it, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and finish rehousing it. But I'm gonna check one more time on our discharge head. And you see I got a little bit more out of that. This is because when we first apply the discharge head and the pressure, that diaphragm resists a little bit, and then after it's warmed up from the pressure, it gives a little, and so we're able to tighten up just a second time. You don't want to go too tight. You don't want to just totally mash that diaphragm, because it can weaken the diaphragm. It can cause the diaphragm to break quicker. So I do it once, and then I check it a second time, and that's really all you need. Next, we'll take this pump, we're gonna flip it upside down, and now we will add our O-rings. And I will fit them down into their grooves. And then I will rotate this around, make sure my cable guard is lined up correctly. I'm going to go ahead and mark this, put a label. I like to know what kind of pump it is when I tear it apart, so I usually right here I'll put my pump number on it. This is a 128 rebuild. We're building this in the 14th week of 2025, and this would be our first one of this production line. Once I've got that on, I've got my O-rings on, now we can get our housing put on. Now to put the housing on, it's really tight fit over these O-rings. To help it slide better, I take here, this is a little bit of it's a food grade animal grease mixed with a little bit of mineral oil. It's perfectly safe. So if it gets in your well water, it's not going to cause any harm. You don't have to use this. You can use Vaseline. You can use Vaseline, works great. You just don't want to completely coat it, saturate it. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of making sure I get this little beveled edge. Once I got this beveled edge, a little bit of grease around the beveled edge, it will slide right over those O-rings just fine. Take it and slide it over the top, and you can see it hits right there. I'm just going to reach out over the top and press down, and it snugs right down. One more, and there we go. Now we're fully seated. Next we take our end cap. We're going to put our O-rings over the end cap. I have a pair of angled pliers. This just makes it easier for me to grab. Once again, we want to make sure our holes are lined up correctly. Here's my cable guard holes, the seam, and I'm going to make sure my wires come right down the middle of that. I'm going to make our connections. So there we have it. Now, when I go to put this on, sometimes these wires will get caught in between the end cap and the motor nuts. So I will take this bunch and I'm going to kind of twist it around to keep it in the center, and I'm going to push it towards the back away from the motor nuts. But I want to keep it centered. And then I can look down in the holes right here. You probably can't see with the camera, but if you're unable to see, you can take your Allen key and you can stick it down to try to fill until you can line up your holes. It's a little bit difficult there, but yeah. So we got our holes lined up right there, and you can push down. And sometimes you got a little twist it just to make sure. And now we can apply our end cap screws. Now with the end cap screw we have our washer, and then we have our O-ring, and then I will take this right here. This is RTV. It's a Dalsol 3145. It's a non-gassing marine grade silicone. Okay, and that's the important thing, that it's a non-gassing. If you have a outgassing silicone, it can actually deteriorate the rubber O-rings. So we want to make sure we have a non-gassing. Make sure I got a good clean bead of silicone here. I don't want any hard boogery bits. Take some silicone and I'm just going to put it around the underside right there. And we're going to drop that in. And we're going to start that one. Go to the other side, make sure the hole is lined up. You can use your pick or your key to make sure it's lined up. And do the same thing. About another pea-size glob of silicone to go underneath. And I put it just down right below. This is going to squeeze down into the hole and up around the O-ring. And zip it down. And now we can go down all the way. And there we have it. Now I will torque these. And typically on a Riton, the plastic end caps, if you're going to be using a plastic end cap, and you can use a plastic end cap with these, that's perfectly fine. You don't want to go above 25 inch-pounds. On these, I can, because they're stainless and it's metal on metal, I'm going to go ahead and just take this right up to 50 inch-pounds. And that way I know that O-ring is nice and tight in there. The silicone kind of squishes out and around, creating a good seal. Now before I go dropping this down in a well, I want to make sure that silicone dries. It takes at least 8 hours for it to dry. Next though, I'm going to also put my plug in. And my plug is this is a 7/16 I believe, or it's a 3/8 with a 7/16 size. It's Allen, I think. I could be wrong there. Don't quote me on that. Maybe it's a... I know it's bigger than a 532 socket, just slightly bigger. I put a little anti-seize on it and I spin it in until it's flush. And there we go. Next, what I do is I will also label the rebuild pump right here underneath the cable guard. This is my 128 rebuild, built on the 14th week of 2025, and this is number 1 in production. I'm just going to bring it over here to where I have a heat gun, and I'm actually going to just put a little bit of heat shrink on it. Now, the heat shrink is not necessary. The heat shrink is just something that we do here to add a little bit of extra protection against the wires where they come out of the cable guard. And because the wires get sandwiched between the cable guard and the pump, dirt can fall down in there and the wires vibrate. This is just to kind of help take out a little bit of the vibration and reduce friction you don't want our wires to be damaged. So that's why I add a little bit of heat shrink. Make sure it's nice and straight and flat. Next, I've got a cable guard here ready to go. Your cable guard has a closed end and an open end. We want the closed end toward the bottom, opened end towards the top. I'm gonna grab my drill here. So what I will do when I'm putting these on to keep my screws from galling up once again, I'm going to line it up, hold it down with my left hand, and my screws ready to go. Put one in right there. And slowly start it, not tightening it down all the way just yet. Do the same thing with this side. There we go. And I'm just starting the screws. I'm not taking them down all the way. I want a little bit of wiggle room in my... Now to put this one in, sometimes the holes don't quite line up perfectly, and I have to kind of pull with my fingers here and kind of twist and then bend a little bit. And then I can get that one in. And then as you can see right there, see how that hole doesn't quite line up? So I got to pull it back and hold it in place when I put the screw in. And there we go. Now I can go back through, finish tightening them down. And there we have it. There is our finished D128 pump. It is now ready to be tested, and I'm going to go ahead and put a label on the front. And yeah, what I will do is I'll check the wiring, make sure I didn't pinch my wires. I can do that simply by taking the wire. Let's strip a little bit off the wire here. And you can hook the wires directly up to a car battery, 12-volt car battery. And here I have 30 volts to test it with. And I can hear it running. I can take my green wire, touch it to the black, make sure there's no arcing or sparks. If I've got a spark, I've got a short somewhere, and I got to undo what I just did. But I very rarely have to undo what I do, because I do it right the first time. There you go. That's how you rebuild your pump. I hope this was helpful. All our parts we sell here at Sun Pumps. You can look us up online at sunpumps.com. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. Best of luck to you. Have a good day.